Yeah, I'm just here alone. Why do you keep asking me if I'm alone?
For 8 months, my son called me every Sunday night to ask if I was home alone. I thought it was the sweetest thing in the world. My boy, finally grown up, checking on his widowed old man. You doing okay, Dad? You by yourself tonight? Then one Sunday, on a hunch I couldn't explain, I lied to him. And that lie is the only reason I'm alive to tell you this. My name is Sam Delgado. I'm 54 years old. For 25 years, I've owned a pawn shop on the east side of Albuquerque. 25 years of standing behind a counter, appraising other people's most precious things, learning to tell a real diamond from cut glass in about 4 seconds, and learning something harder than that, how to read a person. When you buy and sell for a living in a neighborhood like mine, you learn to smell a lie the way a baker smells bread. Desperate men, dangerous men, men running a story. I could spot a con across the shop before a word was spoken. It kept me safe for 25 years. The one voice I never thought to appraise was my own son's on a Sunday night. Before I tell you what that voice was really doing, do me one small kindness. If you've ever wanted to believe the best about someone so badly that you talked yourself out of what your gut already knew, tap subscribe. It's free, and it tells me this story found the right person. And stay to the end. I'm going to ask you something I still can't answer, and I need to hear how you'd have called it. Let me tell you about my son. His name is Tyler. He's 26. His mother, my wife Elena, passed 2 years ago. Breast cancer. She was the light of our house, and when she went out, the house got very dark and very quiet, and I rattled around and alone on the weekends, and Tyler, who'd always been a little lost, a little too easily led, drifted further away. He'd had some trouble. Money trouble. The kind of friends who were trouble. But he was my boy, Elena's boy, and when he started calling every Sunday, I thought, thank God, he's coming back to me. The grief is pulling us together. The calls were always the same. Sunday evening, around 7. Hey, Dad, just thinking about you. You doing okay over there? We'd talk for a few minutes. And near the end, every single time, the same gentle question. You home alone tonight? You not too lonely? And I'd say yes. Because it was true. Every Sunday, I was home alone in the house Elena and I bought, with the safe in my back office where I kept the week's cash and the good pieces from the shop. Alone. For 8 months, I told my son the truth. Yes, Tyler, I'm home alone. I didn't know I was reading him the schedule. The Sunday, everything changed. I almost missed it. We were talking, and I heard something in the background of his call. A voice. Low, male, not Tyler's. And Tyler said, away from the phone, muffled, hang on, I'm asking him. Then he came back, and his voice was tighter, and he asked the question with a little extra weight on it. So you're definitely home alone tonight, Dad? Nobody stopping by? You're sure? Nobody stopping by. You're sure? 25 years of reading people across a counter, and something in the back of my neck went cold. It was the specificity. A loving son asks if you're lonely. He doesn't confirm the details like he's writing them down. Definitely alone. Nobody stopping by. You're sure? That wasn't a son worried about his father. That was a man checking a fact. I didn't know why. I couldn't have told you why. But I have survived 25 years in a cash business in a hard part of town by trusting the cold feeling on the back of my neck. And it had never once been wrong. So I did the thing that saved my life. I lied to my son. No. Actually, I said, easy as anything. Your Uncle Ray's staying over this week. His place is getting fumigated. He's here till Thursday. We're watching the games. Why, you want to come by? There was a pause. A beat too long. And then Tyler said, oh, no, that's cool, Dad. Tell Uncle Ray I said hey. I'll let you go. And he hung up faster than he ever had. Uncle Ray does not exist. I don't have a brother. I made him up on the spot, out of that cold feeling, and I have thanked God for imaginary Uncle Ray every day since. Here's the thing. After I hung up, that cold feeling wouldn't leave me. So I did a few small things I couldn't have explained to you at the time. I left the porch light and 2 inside lights burning. I turned the TV up loud in the front room, the way you would with company over. And I did one more thing. I moved my truck out of the garage and parked in the driveway. And then I walked down and moved my neighbor's spare car, the one he lets me use, in behind it. So there were 2 vehicles sitting in front of a house that was supposed to hold one lonely man. I told myself I was being a paranoid old fool. Then I went to bed with the cold feeling still sitting on the back of my neck. At about 2 in the morning, my dog started barking at the back of the house. Low and steady and serious, not the bark he gives a possum. I got up and I went to the bedroom window and I looked out. There was a car parked across the street with its lights off and the shape of a man sitting behind the wheel. And then my motion light clicked on over the back patio, and I saw a second man standing at my back door. I watched him freeze in that light. I watched him look up at the burning windows and the loud television and the 2 cars in my driveway. And I watched him make the calculation. 1 man alone was the job. A house full of people awake at 2 a.m. was not. He melted back into the dark, and the car across the street pulled away, slow and quiet. No headlights until the corner. They came. The night my son confirmed I'd be home alone, they came to my back door with the tools to open it. And the only thing that turned them around was a brother who doesn't exist, 2 borrowed cars, and a lie I told on a feeling I couldn't name. If you're still with me, do an old man that kindness and tap subscribe before I tell you what I found the next morning, because that's when the sweetest thing in my life turned into the worst. The next morning, there were prime marks on my back door. Fresh. Someone had started on the lock and stopped. And I stood there looking at those marks in the daylight, and I made myself do the thing I did not want to do. I went and I looked at my cameras. I have cameras, of course. You don't run a pawn shop for 25 years without becoming a man who watches his own doors. I had them on the house too, and I'd never once had a reason to review the footage. So I sat down and I went back. Not just to that night, to other Sundays. And there it was, that same car, cruising slow past my house on Sunday nights, going back weeks. Casing, timing, learning the street. On the nights I told my son I was home alone, someone had been studying me for months. And the only person on earth who knew every single Sunday that I was home by myself was the person who called to ask. I sat in my kitchen and I felt something in my chest just fold. Because there's a specific kind of cold that comes when your body understands a thing your heart is still refusing to. My son's Sunday calls weren't love. They were reconnaissance. Every "you doing okay, Dad?" was a man reading me the schedule to whoever was sitting next to him in the dark. God, I wanted to be wrong. I sat at that kitchen table, and I built my son a dozen excuses. He's awkward on the phone. He always has been. He heard about a break-in in the neighborhood and got protective. He's just a worried kid. But every excuse I built died against the same wall, and the wall was this. Nobody else on this earth knew my Sundays. Not a neighbor, not a friend, not a soul. Only the boy who called to ask. And a car had been crawling past my house on the exact nights I told him I was alone. So I did what I've done for 25 years when I need the truth about someone instead of the story they're selling. I stopped guessing, and I went and got it. Confronting Tyler was the wrong move, and I knew it before the thought finished forming. Not yet. I've watched 100 desperate men come across my counter, and the one thing they all have in common is this. The moment you let them see that you see them, they get careful and quiet, and you never learn the real shape of the thing. So I stayed calm. I called Tyler 2 days later, normal as anything, and I asked him to come help me move some furniture that Sunday. And I made sure to mention, casual in passing, that Uncle Ray had gone home, and I'd be on my own again that weekend. I watched the trap set itself in his face when he came over. My son couldn't look at me. His hand shook. He kept checking his phone. And when he went to the bathroom, God forgive me, I picked it up off the counter, and I knew his passcode because it's Elena's birthday, and I read the messages. I'm not going to read you all of them. I can't, but I'll tell you what they said. There was a thread with the contacts saved as just a letter. And in it, my son had written, weeks ago, "Old man's home alone every Sunday. Cash and the good jewelry are in a safe in his back office. He's the only one who opens it." And the reply, "Then we need him there to open it. Sunday's good. And Tyler, just don't hurt him. That's the deal. Just the safe." And a reply that stopped my heart in my chest. "Won't be nobody there to hurt if he cooperates. Relax. Won't be nobody there to hurt if he cooperates." I stood in my kitchen holding my son's phone, and I read that line 4 or 5 times, and the floor seemed to tilt under me. Because I've been around men like that long enough to translate them. To a normal person, "won't be nobody there to hurt if he cooperates" sounds almost reassuring. Do what we say and you'll be fine. That is not what it means. Read it cold the way they meant it. It doesn't say we won't hurt him. It says there won't be anybody left to hurt. They didn't want an empty house. They wanted me in it because I was the only living person who could open that safe. And a man you force to open a safe is a man who sees your faces, hears your voices, and can put you in a courtroom for the next 20 years. A crew that plans around a safe only the owner can open has already decided what to do about the owner afterward. It means me on my own kitchen floor so that the one witness to everything they'd done would be gone. And my son had handed them the calendar. My son had sold them my Sundays. He told himself it was just the safe. He typed the words, "Just don't hurt him," like a boy who'd handed a loaded gun to men he owed and then asked them, please, to be gentle. And the men he owed had already decided I was a loose end. And the week I lied, the week Uncle Ray was watching the games, one of them had typed, and I saw this too, abort. He's got someone there. Next week. There was going to be a next week. The lie hadn't ended it. It had only bought me 7 days. Now let me tell you what I did with those 7 days, because being who I am is the only reason I'm here. I did not run to Tyler screaming. I did not call 911 either, and I want you to understand why, because it matters. Think about what that call even sounds like. A man phones the police to say his own son is arranging to have him robbed and maybe killed by men nobody can name on a night that hasn't happened yet. 2 officers come out. They take a report. They leave. And the crew, feeling the temperature change, simply picks a different night or a different house or a different Sam. I have dealt with the fringe of that world for a quarter century. I know exactly how it moves. And I know that half measures against men like that are how people end up dead. So I called a man named Detective Nunez, who I've known for 15 years. He's worked half the burglaries and fence goods cases that ever touched my shop, and he's straight, and he trusts me because I've never once lied to him about a serial number. I laid it all out. The casing car on my cameras, the prime marks, the messages on Tyler's phone, which I'd photographed, all of it. And Nunez, who is a patient man, said the thing that decided everything. He said, "Sam, these aren't kids playing tough. A crew that says no loose ends about a 54-year-old man in his own home. They've done this before, and there are other Sams out there, and if we spook them, they'll just pick a different house. So we don't spook them. We let them come, and we're there when they do." And that's what we did. The following Sunday, I made the call I knew Tyler would be waiting for. I mentioned to him, casual, that it'd just be me that night. Alone. And Tyler went quiet on the phone and said, "Okay, Dad," in a voice I'll hear the rest of my life, because I finally understood it was the voice of a boy sending men to my door and hating himself and doing it anyway. They came at 1 a.m, the way I knew they would. And this time the house was not what they thought. Detective Nunez and his people were inside, in the dark, waiting. My dog was safe at the neighbors, and I was not home at all. I was 3 blocks away in an unmarked car with a second detective, listening to it happen over the radio, my heart going like a hammer. I heard the back door give. I heard boots on the kitchen floor of the house where Elena and I raised our son. And then I heard the shout and the scramble, and it was over in under a minute. They took 2 men at my back door with the pry bar still in their hands, and a third behind the wheel of that car across the street. And within a week, Nunez's people had tied that crew to 2 other home invasions on the other side of the city, including one months back where a man about my age had opened his safe for them and had not been lucky enough to have an imaginary brother. I think about that man a lot. I think about how the only difference between his kitchen floor and mine was a cold feeling on the back of my neck and the nerve to lie to my own son. The lie saved my life, and it may have saved the life of whoever would have been next. Now here is the part one still can't sleep over. Because when they rolled up that crew, they rolled up my son too. Tyler was there, sitting in the car across the street, because they'd made him come to point out the house, to make sure it was the right one, to bind him to it so he could never talk. My boy, in the car on the night he'd arranged, waiting for his father to be robbed, and, whether he let himself believe it or not, killed. I had a choice to make, and I made it before the sun came up. Detective Nunez gave me the room to make it. I told him everything, and I handed over the phone, and I did not shade one detail to protect my son, because I have never lied to Nunez, and because Tyler had handed dangerous men my death and called it love for 8 months. and some things a man cannot unknow about his own child. But I also told Nunez the truth about the other thing, that Tyler was a terrified, in-over-his-head kid who'd been threatened into it, who'd written "just don't hurt him" like that meant anything, who was a pawn to that crew and not a partner. And Nunez and the DA, in the end, used that. Tyler became the witness that took the crew down for good. He's facing consequences, real ones, and he should. But he's alive, and he's not buried under a prison for the rest of his life. And the men who actually meant to leave me dead on my own floor are. I did see him once before all the lawyers and the deals. Nunez let me sit across the table from my son, and I didn't yell. I just asked him one question. I asked him, when you call me every Sunday and you asked if I was alone, did you ever one single time think about what they were going to do to me? And Tyler couldn't look at me. And he said the only true thing he'd said in 8 months. He said, I told myself you'd just open the safe and they'd leave. I made myself believe that, Dad, because I couldn't live with the other thing. And I understood then the exact shape of what my son was. Not a monster. Something almost worse. A weak man who traded his father's life for his own skin, and then lied to himself so well that he could still say, I love you, on the phone and mean it. That's the betrayal I can't get past. Not that he did it. That he could do it and still feel like my son while he did. I visit him. That surprises people. I sit across a table from the son who read Killer's my schedule, and I don't have one clean feeling about it. I grieve the boy I thought was calling out of love. I'm furious at the man who wasn't. And underneath both, I'm his father, and Elena's not here to be his mother. And if I cut him off completely, then that crew wins one more thing. My son, all the way. So I visit. I don't know if I'm right to. Some nights I don't think I am. 25 years I spent learning to tell what's real from what's fake across a pawn counter. I could spot a salted diamond, a re-stamped serial number, a sob story with a hook in it, from clear across the room. I never once thought to appraise the sound of my own son's voice on a Sunday night. Because when it's someone you love, you don't examine the stone. You just want so badly for it to be real that you take it on faith. That's the one appraisal I got wrong, and it nearly cost me everything. So here's my question, and I mean it, because I truly don't know. I chose to stay in my son's life, to visit the boy who set me up to die, because he's still my son and his mother is gone. Was I right? Or is there a betrayal so deep that a father is allowed, finally, to close the door and save what's left of himself? Tell me down in the comments. I've asked myself every night for a year, and I still can't answer it. If this story meant something to you, do me that kindness, subscribe, hit like, and this week, pay attention to the questions people ask you. Not just the ones that sound like love, the specific ones, the ones they seem to be writing down. Trust the cold feeling on the back of your neck. Mine was the only thing that told me the truth when everyone I loved was lying. I'll see you next time.